You're 8 years old. You can't tie your own hair, but today servants twist it into braids and crown it with pearls. You can't read, but a marriage contract rests on a table beside you, written in ink darker than your fear. And everyone smiles as if this moment is sacred, as if this is what you were born for. The silk gown drapes heavy on your shoulders, its golden embroidery biting into your skin. Gilded lions, crosses and suns swirl across the fabric, symbols meant to bless, but none meant to protect. The weight of jewellery is worse. Bracelets clink when your hands tremble. Necklaces pull against your small neck like chains disguised as beauty. Somewhere behind you, the courtiers murmur prayers. Their voices sound distant, like echoes in a cathedral where the walls have learned to keep secrets. Before we take you deeper into her story, subscribe. Not for us, for her. For every girl whose voice was buried under crowns, for every child bride history turned into a footnote. These are the stories no textbook dares to tell, and you'll want to hear them all. They call it a wedding, they call it sacred, they call it necessary, but no one calls it what it is, a sentence. Your uncle waits at the altar, a man you once knew as family, a man you've kissed on the cheek after dinners, never imagining this day. He is much older, tall, decorated, with hands that hold the sword and the crown. Today, those same hands will hold you. The priest speaks of bloodlines, of duty, of divine right. His words are soft, but his gaze is cold. He tells the gathering that this union will save the kingdom, keep the throne unbroken. He says your blood is perfect, that your womb will serve the empire. You don't understand. But you see your mother's tears. She was 12 when she stood where you stand. The music starts. Petals scatter on the floor like drops of false hope. Incense burns thick in the air. It stings your eyes and throat. You try not to cough. Your small hand slides into your uncle's. It's cold. It doesn't tremble. The ring slips on your finger and the crowd cheers. You are now a wife, a royal wife, a child queen, a prisoner in silk. You were never born to be free. You were born to be pure. Before you could speak, your bloodline spoke for you. Before you could cry, it was already decided what you'd wear, who you'd marry, how you'd die. Not because of who you were, but because of who you came from. That was all that mattered. They called your blood royal. But what they really meant was controlled. Your mother and father were cousins. Their marriage had been arranged when they were children too, not out of love, but out of necessity. The court whispered about piety and loyalty, but in truth, it was always about the blood, keeping it unbroken, untouched, divine. You were born in a chamber heavy with tapestries and prayers. The midwives bowed not because you were a baby, but because you were a vessel, a hope wrapped in lace. You had your father's eyes, your mother's skin, and the family's curse. That invisible thread, stitched over generations, pulled tighter the moment you took your first breath. They said you were lucky. A girl, yes, but a useful girl. A girl with clean blood. As you grew, the stories came of a great-grandmother who married her uncle, of a princess who bore her own brother's child, of bloodlines kept so holy that daughters were offered like coins at the altar, traded back into the same family that birthed them. You heard these stories not as horrors, but as virtues. This was your inheritance, a kingdom of closed loops. In portraits you were painted with halos, not because you were innocent, but because you were owned. The artist knew, everyone knew. You weren't being raised, you were being preserved, sheltered not to be protected, but to be untouched. And untouched meant valuable. At dinners the men spoke of alliances, of futures, of sons. You were not there to speak, you were there to be spoken about. Your worth was measured in how closely your blood matched his, your uncle, your future. They praised the purity of your veins, they toasted to it. Your pulse became a political contract, your heartbeat the sound of inheritance. You had no say in what it meant, only that it was yours and that one day it would be his. No one warned you that purity has a price. When you fell ill once as a child, they didn't worry about your health. They worried about your fertility. The doctor was called not to comfort, but to inspect. He checked your hips, your weight, your potential. At 10, you were not a girl. You were a calculation, and the closer you came to womanhood, the tighter the net grew. You weren't taught how to write your name, but you were taught how to carry yourself when men watched. You weren't told about books, but you were told about duty. You weren't given dreams, you were given expectations, and they were not small. Even when you cried, the walls didn't echo back. Because in palaces like yours, crying is a language no one answers, so you learn to be quiet, to hold your breath during fittings, to smile when your uncle looked too long, to speak softly when elders asked if you were ready. You were never ready, but no one cared, because your blood was, and your blood, they said, was perfect. He was always there, at dinners, at sermons, in the garden paths where you learned to walk, your uncle, your cousin's father, your mother's brother, and one day, your husband. You didn't understand it at first. How could you? You were a child, and he was the man they all bowed to. He was raised in velvet and doctrine, told that the blood in his veins was closer to the divine than the prayers of the poor, that he was born not just to rule, but to preserve, that the crown, the faith, and the kingdom all lived in his body and must be passed on through bodies like yours. As a boy, they praised him for stillness, for silence, for watching. He learned early that power was not loud, it was inherited, and that inheritance came with rules. Rule 1, do not mix blood. Rule 2, do not love outside the line. Rule 3, if you must break a girl, do it gently, so she still smiles at court. They gave him girls to practice on, servants, orphans, girls without names, not to love, but to learn, how to touch, how to take, how to smile afterwards so no one asked questions. By the time he was 15, the chambermaids avoided his gaze. By 20, he could make them obey without raising his voice. And then came you. He watched you grow like one watches a garden they know they'll harvest. He brought you sweets at age 5, gifts at 6. He brushed your hair with his own hands at 7. He told you you were brilliant, that your laugh was like music, that no one understood the royal burden but him, that you were special. You didn't know those words were traps. You didn't see how they curved around your innocence like vines waiting to bloom. Because everyone else smiled too. They wanted you to love him. It made everything easier that way. At court, they whispered of destiny. How beautiful the pairing was. How right it looked. How lucky you were to be chosen by someone so strong, so noble, so close. Close. That word followed you everywhere. Too close to question. Too close to escape. Too close to call wrong. He gave you a doll once, carved from ivory, dressed in silk, with a tiny gold ring on its finger. You didn't understand what it meant. Not then. He did. Because he wasn't waiting for you to become a woman. He was shaping you into one, into his woman. He taught you how to sit, how to smile, how to speak only when spoken to. He told you what men liked, what kings needed. He said you would make a perfect queen, a perfect wife. Because you listened, and you did. Because no one gave you any other choice. The court called it grooming. But not in whispers of concern. They meant it like praise. A groomed girl, a polished girl, a girl who understood duty. They didn't say the word love, because love implies choice. This was not love. This was design. And when the betrothal was announced, he didn't ask if you were ready. He told you that you were, that your mother had been younger, that this was tradition, that the crown needed you. You nodded. You always nodded. Because what else could you do? You weren't taught how to resist, only how to obey. And he wasn't a monster in the shadows. He was your uncle, your mentor, your mirror, and now your husband. Because blood doesn't blush, it binds. And yours, he was told, was meant for him. The day begins with music. Not joy, not celebration, just music. Hollow flutes echo through the corridor as the maids dress you. They tighten the silk bodice until your ribs press in. They pin your sleeves high and your hair higher. They say you look like a queen. You don't feel like anything. The mirror shows a girl with no voice. Pearls hang from her ears, but she hears nothing. Gold sparkles across her shoulders, but she feels none of it. She blinks once, twice, then she stops counting. Because today is not a day for questions. Today is a day for obedience. Your mother kisses your cheek. Your father adjusts your train. The court ladies whisper blessings that sound like instructions. They say grace, dignity, honour. They don't say help. The doors open and the cathedral yawns before you like a throat. High arches, candle smoke, marble cold enough to numb the feet. You step forward. The silence is louder than the music now. Each footstep lands like a verdict. Left, right, left, right. The rhythm of surrender. He waits at the altar, your uncle, your groom, your destiny. You try not to look directly at him, but his eyes never leave your face. The priest begins. You recognize only fragments. Words like sanctity, duty, bloodline. Words like chains wrapped in velvet. Your fingers tremble. You hide them under your sleeves. The priest asks if you accept this man. Everyone looks at you. You open your mouth, you close it. A whisper escapes. Yes. It's the first lie you've ever told, and it's the only one they reward. They call it consent. He takes your hand, slides the ring on with practiced ease. The metal is cold, heavier than it should be. He kisses your forehead, and the room claps. That's all. No grand fanfare, no flash of light. Just silence and the sound of approval. The ceremony is done, and yet something in you has shifted. You're no longer a girl, not in their eyes. You are a wife, a queen, a vessel. No one asks if you understand the vows. No one checks if your hands stop shaking. They just move you to the feast, a grand hall, goblets overflowing, laughter ricocheting off stone walls, roasted meats, honeyed almonds, spilled wine, spilled futures. He sits beside you now. His hand rests lightly on yours like possession. Not tight, not cruel, just permanent. He toasts to unity, to strength, to family. No one toasts to you. You chew when told, you smile when expected, and when the musicians begin to play, you dance when led. The floor spins, the air thickens, and for a moment, you feel like you're watching someone else. Another girl with your face, your dress, your fate. But it's you, and this is real. You think of the doll you left behind in the nursery, the one with glass eyes and a cracked porcelain hand. She didn't get a farewell, neither did you. Because this wasn't a departure, it was an offering. By the end of the night, the guests are drunk on tradition. They speak of legacy. They speak of divine order. They speak as if your body isn't sitting right there staring at a plate you can't eat from. He leans toward you. He says, "It's time." You nod. Because what else can you do? The applause follows you to the doors. So do the eyes. But not the questions. Never the questions. Your chamber is filled with roses. Perfume clings to the sheets. And as the door closes behind you, it doesn't creak. It clicks, softly, like a secret locking itself in. The wedding was just the beginning. The next morning the world changes. You're moved out of the nursery, no more dolls, no more bedtime stories. The maids who once tied your braids and whispered songs are replaced. Now they bow before you. Now they call you your majesty. But they don't look you in the eye. Your chambers are colder, larger, silent. The gowns they give you are heavier now, stitched for a woman, not a girl. You can't walk without stumbling. You can't sit without help. But they tell you, walk like a queen, sit like a queen, smile like a queen. You're 13. You don't know how to be anything. The Queen's quarters have velvet drapes, carved ivory combs, a writing desk you're not allowed to use. The windows are barred, not like a prison, but like a shrine. You're on display. They come to look at you, not listen. You spend your days learning how to disappear inside yourself. You answer only when asked. You fold your hands the right way. You keep your voice low. Even your breath is measured, light, invisible. At night, you lie still. The covers pulled up to your chin. The perfume they forced on your skin clings to the pillows. The door opens. He doesn't knock. Sometimes he speaks softly. Sometimes he doesn't speak at all. Sometimes he falls asleep beside you and dreams of suns. You lie awake. They told you it would be your duty, but they didn't tell you it would feel like erasure. You bleed for the first time a few months later. They celebrate. The court whispers of fertility. The midwives start visiting. They press their hands against your belly and nod as if your body is no longer yours. Your womb is now part of the empire, and they all wait for it to work. You're 14, still a child, but in their eyes, you are already failing. No pregnancy, no heir. Whispers shift from praise to pity. They begin blaming your appetite, your posture, your restlessness. They tell you to eat more grapes, to drink more milk, to pray longer, to be still. You stop speaking altogether. There's nothing left to say. The palace grows quieter, even when it's loud. You sit through feasts where music plays and people laugh. But all you hear is the ticking inside your own mind, counting the days, counting the failures, counting the ways you've disappointed them. Your body starts to ache in strange ways. A pain that doesn't bruise, doesn't swell, doesn't heal. It settles in your bones. A coldness that never leaves. One morning, the physician visits. He does not ask permission before touching you. He calls it examination. After, he tells your husband it is your fault. Too small, too narrow, not built for heirs. He says this while you're still in the room. You turn your face to the window. Outside, snow falls. Inside, you stop feeling your hands. Your friends are gone, married off, banished. One girl, your cousin, tried to write you letters. You never received them. One day, you asked where she'd gone. The lady in waiting replied, "She's no longer appropriate." You understood what that meant. Now you speak only to your reflection, and even that version of you is fading. At 15, you cry once, only once, behind the tapestry, alone. Your tears stain the lining of your gown, the one they embroidered with your family crest, an eagle devouring its own tail. It feels correct. You're devouring yourself to keep them fed. The court poet writes a ballad about your beauty. The ambassador sends portraits of you abroad. Your smile is admired in foreign courts. Your silence is praised as virtue. No one asks how you sleep. No one asks if you still bleed every month, and if it hurts more each time. No one asks if you ever dream of undoing the wedding. By 16, the crown begins to feel less like an honour and more like a collar. You attend more ceremonies now, blessings, royal hunts, diplomatic banquets. You wave, you bow, you nod. But your hands remain folded, always folded. They call it grace, you call it survival. He no longer visits as often. He calls you delicate, tells others you are temperamental. He blames you for the silence in the nursery. The ministers nod. The courtiers shift blame like cards. No one ever looks at the king, only at the girl who became queen too soon. At night you walk the palace corridors barefoot, just to remember what it's like to feel something. The stone floor is cold, it grounds you. You press your hand to the wall. The stone is real. You are real, but you don't belong to yourself. You belong to a crown, to a bloodline, to a marriage that used your body as a battlefield, and no one is coming to rescue you. Because you already live in a gilded cage, and they told you that was love. Your bones start to ache before winter. At first, it's just your knees when you rise too quickly, then your back, then your jaw. A pain that moves, quiet, steady, patient. By 17, you've grown into your gowns, but your limbs bend wrong. Your gait has changed. A stiffness settles into your body like mould in old stone. The court says you are delicate. The midwives say you need more rest. The truth is, no one knows how to name it. They call it the price of royalty. But you feel the truth in your marrow. It's not just the crown crushing you. It's the blood it was built to protect. You bleed irregularly now, sometimes not for months, then all at once. The sheets look like something from a battlefield. The maids grow used to burning linen in silence. Your stomach swells and flattens unpredictably. Every time hope returns, every time it dies. The physicians whisper words you don't fully understand. Congenital collapse, genetic degradation, purity decay. But they still bow. They still kiss your hand. Because even a broken relic is holy in this palace. Sometimes you seize in your sleep. You wake up tasting iron. Your husband does not visit anymore. Not for affection, not for obligation. He sends prayers instead. He sends priests. Once, he sends a dog. Companionship, he calls it. You name it mercy. It's the only living thing that touches you without expectation. By 18, your jaw swells on one side. You can't chew properly. The court portraitist paints you in profile to hide it. But even the paint cracks where your skin is warped. When you walk, people look away. They still call you Majesty, but now they mean it like a curse. Your uncle, your husband, has grown harder, older, bitter. His hair has gone grey. His temper sharpens like a blade. Every time he looks at you, it's as if he's staring at a promise broken. You were meant to give him sons. You were meant to immortalize the blood. Instead, you remind him of failure. He starts bringing in new girls, foreign ones, with healthy cheeks, with wide hips, with no royal blood at all. You're not told directly. You hear it in the walls. One night you scream, not because of pain, but because silence has made you forget what your voice sounds like. The scream echoes for what feels like hours. No one comes. The next morning, the guards stand closer to your chamber door. Later that week, you're moved to a separate wing. They say it's for your health. They say the air is cleaner here. They do not say you're being hidden. No one paints your face anymore. The mirror is covered. Your meals arrive on silent trays. The physician still visits, but now he asks fewer questions. He takes notes. He doesn't meet your eyes. You're 19, and you've become a rumour. They say you have the bone curse, that your ancestors' sins have found their way into your skull, that your teeth are rotting from the inside, that your spine is curling like a withered stem, that your womb has turned against you. They don't know your name, they just know the blood, and even that is rotting. One day, a foreign envoy visits the palace. You hear music in the courtyard, trumpets, drums, cheers. You're not invited. But you hear your name. The envoy asks, "Where is the queen?" There's a pause, a long one. Then your uncle laughs. "She's recovering." You sit alone, in a gown 2 winters old. Your dog has died. Your skin itches from damp walls. Your breath fogs the glass. You draw shapes in it, stars, crosses, lions, symbols they once sewed into your dresses. Now they don't even send fabric. You wonder if you're dying. Not dramatically, not tragically, just slowly, quietly, like a candle left unattended. There are no final words, no redemption, just the sound of your heartbeat, thinning, faltering, fading, and even that you suspect will not be mourned, because you were never meant to survive. You were meant to serve, to carry blood forward, and now the blood has turned to poison. You touch your belly, soft, empty, and you think, this is not a tomb, this is a vault. They locked their legacy inside you, and now they've thrown away the key. They never say the word exile, but that's what it is. You're not banished to another kingdom. You're not thrown into a convent. No carriage waits at dawn. There's no spectacle, no verdict. They simply stop unlocking the door. Your chamber is moved again, this time to the farthest edge of the palace, past the kitchens, past the servants' quarters, past the part of the castle where people still pretend to care. It's quieter here. The air smells like damp stone and memory. You wake to silence. You sleep to silence. You live in silence. No more gowns, just wool and linen. No pearls, no combs, no books, no visitors. Once a week, someone brings bread and broth. They don't speak. You forget your last name. You forget how many winters have passed. Sometimes you think you hear voices in the corridor. You rush to the door, press your ear to it, breathe like you're drowning. But the voices fade, and the door never opens. Your uncle is remarried, a young bride, foreign, fertile. There are whispers she's given him a son. You hear bells one morning, bells that should have rung for you. But you're not called to the chapel. You're not called to kneel or to witness or to bless. You're not called at all. Your name has vanished from the court registry. The household logs say the West Wing is vacant. A noble woman once asks what became of the first queen. The steward shrugs. She was unwell. Your body thins, not from disease but from absence. The absence of care, of touch, of purpose. Your hands shake when you hold a cup. Your vision blurs around the edges, but your mind stays sharp. That is the curse. You remember everything. Your wedding, the kiss, the silence, the blood, especially the blood. You think of your mother. You wonder if she died the same way, slowly, quietly, reverently erased. You press your palm to the cold stone wall. It doesn't push back. When you finally stop waking, no one notices. The servants wait 3 days before checking. There is no announcement, no mourning, no state procession. Your body is taken before sunrise, through a back hallway. Your tomb is small, a crypt beneath the palace. There is no name, no inscription, only the family crest, hammered in gold. It is meant to honour the bloodline, but it's the only thing they let you keep. They buried you like a secret, and in the end, that's what you were. Not a queen, not a wife, not even a child, just a vessel for blood, for pride, for silence. And though no one speaks of you now, the walls remember. They echo with the footsteps of a girl in silk, a girl with trembling hands, a girl who was told her blood was perfect, but whose life was never hers.